Welcome back to the live stream here from the Four Seasons at Black Hat 2024. I'm Jeff Mann, co-host of Paul Security Weekly, and with me for this segment is Maor bin. Hopefully I got that right. He is CEO and founder of a company called Adaptive Shield. Maor, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into cybersecurity, and ultimately how you started this company called Adaptive Shield.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so first of all, Adaptive Shield is in the SaaS security space.
Okay.
And I think this is, beside the fact that, it's an emerging market and the talk of the town everybody's talking about, and I guess we'll get that in a second.
Right.
The way we started it is, there was, so my background is, obviously, as an Israeli, I sort of served lots of years in the intelligence forces, but also, after that, just before starting up Adaptive Shield, I was the head of research of everything that was related to SaaS security, but particularly Office 365 security at a company called Proofpoint. You probably know the firm.
I might have heard of that one.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Yeah. And I think my responsibility was to kind of bring this threat detection engine to life on Office 365 in particular. Mm-hmm. And we had a good run, and lots of traction and lots of kind of feedback across the board. And when I left Proofpoint, I spoke with lots of people, from my network and outside of my network, trying to understand what trends in cybersecurity are out there, right? And everybody keep talking about SaaS security, even though there were many traditional security solutions out there, like CASBs and many others. Mm-hmm. And I was immediately pushed back, right, and said, well, you have the CASBs and you have all the traditional security controls in place. Why do you need another tool? Mm-hmm. And they will immediately respond.
Thank you for calling it a tool and not a solution, by the way. But go on.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, they kind of, explained to me that they want to create the same process that they have in other segments in their environment, right? But for SaaS applications. For example, they're doing this process of hardening and continuous hygiene over, their devices, right, the servers, infrastructure in general, right? But when it comes to SaaS applications, things are falling between the cracks, right? So that was a strong indicator for us that an automated fashion is required, as part of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How does the recent changes to the workforce and the migration, maybe the ebb and flow of more people working from home necessarily over the last couple of years, how does that factor into SaaS security?
I think a lot.
Right.
I think that many organizations and big organizations that mostly were or heavily invested on-prem, right? Mm-hmm. And they had multi-year plans to move to the cloud, right? And do all those kind of things. But eventually, found themselves, and woke up one morning and said, well, you know what, we need to do it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then, it accelerated everything, right? And in order to move to the cloud, you also need to invest in security, and you need to make sure everything is aligned with your security policies as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've been working from home for years. I have a day job, and it wasn't new for me to work from home, other than work from home for me often meant a lot of time on the road.
Right.
But all of a sudden I was at home. But I have the ability, right or wrong, to be able to use my company laptop, or I could use my personal laptop to reach certain things.
Right.
Is that fairly common these days, especially in the rush to get people set up at home? I assume not everybody had a laptop. A lot of people probably had workstations.
Yeah.
And if I recall, there was kind of a shortage on equipment back in the early days of the lockdown. So how does what you guys provide transcend multiple platforms especially that aren't necessarily being managed by the IT department?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the story, right? So the idea behind Adaptive Shield is to help exactly with that, right? To make sure you have kind of a smooth transition into and flesh out the things that you normally like, flesh out the unknown unknowns, right? And this is but I think what's unique about it and our approach is that it's also identity-centric, right? So focus on the identity and look for every component that is related to your identity journey. Yeah. So this is more or less kind of on a very high level, but we can dig in if you.
Well, I'm curious a little bit about how it works. What exactly does Adaptive Shield do?
Yeah. So we, at the end of the day, connect to all your SaaS application. And it's a SaaS security solution, right? And we connect to all your SaaS application. Now I called it a solution.
You did. You caught yourself.
Yeah. And, we connect to all those SaaS application, retrieve native security controls, out of them, and basically look for security loopholes, right? Analyze them in our backend, look for security loopholes, comparing them to vendor best practices and compliance frameworks and security benchmarks, and also, retrieving information that is related to not only the users and their permissions, but also to their device, and try to understand, the relationship between them. Also try to, uncover the relationship and communications between the SaaS application, not talking with the users but also talking with each other, right, and intercommunicating with one another, looking at each and every activity and each and every event log that comes in, analyze them, look for anomalies, look for bad things that are happening in the wild, and connecting everything that I just said to and be part of your security operations center.
So it sounds like, and forgive me if I'm being too basic, but it sounds like you're focused more on the server that's serving the application. Do you also do anything at sort of the consumer end, the user end, or what are the differences between the two focus areas?
Yeah, so I think the focus is on the identity side, right? So this is kind of the main, and the idea behind it is to be kind of and take the approach of being an identity-centric, taking this approach as part of the general idea. Now, the thing is that when you connect to a SaaS applications, you have lots of layers that are related to until you get into the data, right? So you have the identity, that's the basics, right? Then you have the device. Each device has, a browser in, right? Because that's the main tool in order to maintain access to those SaaS environments, into cloud in general, and to the modern organization, right? Really. After that, you have the kind of SAML authority or authentication authority, tools like Okta and Azure Active Directory, right? That needs to kind of serve as a barrier of authentication, but not all users are going through those authorities sometimes, because you have local users, you have many challenges. So that's a huge part of the challenge. So not knowing exactly what is the path the user will take. After that, you have the SaaS themselves, right? It could be as an entity, standalone, right, and could be communicating or intercommunicating between themselves, right? OAuth is a huge part of it, right? And NHI, there is a trend now calling NHI, right, non-human identity. So this is part of it, right? Generating API keys and having non-human entities communicating with those and retrieving information, and who knows what they do with it, right? And the next level would be authorization, and after that, access to the data, right? So there is a whole journey, and as a SaaS security tool, you need to kind of make sure you cover each one of those layers.
Do you have like a monitoring aspect to your tool, where if things are changed or malicious or potential malicious behavior, somebody's trying to log in that may or may not be the actual user, that type of thing?
Yeah, so we do it at several layers, right? So we kind of have the posture management side, so it's more kind of a preventive approach. things that you need to do in order to prevent threats from happening in the first place.
Gotcha.
And then you have, so that could be, a configuration or a permission that you need to trim, right?
So it's a hygiene type of check.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. And on the other end, you have the detection and response area, and when you look at the pillars of prevention, detection, and response, that's what defines you as a platform,
Gotcha.
right? And the idea behind it, I can give you an example, right? So you have a very common attack that we are seeing in the wild and used to see like recently is the teams. Phishing campaigns, spreading, malware, etc. So
Right.
the idea behind it was a configuration that actually allowed external users to send messages outside the organization,
Right.
But me as a user, I don't expect getting phishing out of Teams, right?
Right.
I expect
Right.
getting email phishing emails, etc. So my mindset not expecting to get, and this is why this campaign was so successful. And eventually, many organizations weren't aware of this configuration. They could potentially just disable and then prevent
Right.
these kind of attacks from happening.
It was a feature.
It's a feature. Listen, I always say, SaaS vendors, they're doing a tremendous job. Threat actors using good features that SaaS
Right.
vendors developed
Right.
for bad stuff, right?
There's always been that sort of gap between developers that they're so focused on making whatever they're building work and do
Yep.
all the things it has to do, and not imagining that capabilities and features that they're building in could possibly be used in a different way or used in ways other than intended. I mean, that's been going on forever in our industry.
No, absolutely. I think that at the end of the day, those SaaS vendors, they're using and developing, and introducing and exposing lots of native security controls. And us as users, right? It's our responsibility to make sure, and the security organization needs to make sure, all those things, are aligned with our security policy.
Right.
This is probably the most important thing you could do. And guess what? It's also, it's already there, right? So why not utilizing it? It's already there. It's like, having a room without locking the door. I mean, it's already embedded and
Right.
coming as part of it.
Right.
Now, the second part, right? Some organization will tell you, well, you know what? I need this capability. I need the capability of external users send internal users messages. So what do I do, right? That's where the detection and response comes in play, and being able to monitor each and every activity that comes in,
Right.
monitor changes when required, and understand comparing it to, for example, your domains and who can send messages, and maintaining kind of the things that you need to do and the controls that you need to take care of as part of ongoing monitoring.
Gotcha. What does the outputs look like? What does the reporting look like?
So at the end of the day, when it comes to security tools in general, it's all about reporting and
Yep.
and be able to consume in a very
That's why I'm asking the question.
yeah. And I think the team at Adaptive invested a lot in the user interface and the way you can actually retrieve the data and consume it and
Okay.
digest it. So it comes, in multiple forms. So it could be, a list of stuff that you can do, very actionable things. We call it security checks. And
Okay.
basically all the findings, and we normalize the data in the finding itself, like what does it mean? We label it in some sort of a bucket. So, for example, access control or data leakage protection or stuff like that. And then, the level of severity and level of impact that this, by not using it right, could
Okay.
impact your organization. You have, kind of other tools embedded, in the inside that, could give you a single point of like an area where you can see all the users, their permissions, the applications they're connected to, and consume it and make queries in a very easy fashion. Same goes for device or SaaS to SaaS connectivities, OAuth applications, API keys, browser extension, everything that you can think of that is connected to your environment. And of course, data, permissions, that everything that comes in mind. Another kind of view is to be able, so those are the static things that, kind of change within time, but they're more of, for you to be able to query, digest, and create kind of your own, and make sure you create your own policy based on it.
Okay.
But you have also the monitoring tool, which is an ongoing kind of, event monitoring tool that alerts on anomalies and suspicious, activity that is happening in your environment.
Great. Well, unfortunately, our time is wrapped up. Got you talking about your baby, and the time is gone. For our listeners out there, if you want to find out more information about Adaptive Shield, go to securityweekly.com/Adaptive Shield BH. Maor, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Great.